Okay.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Queer Eye Straight Talk with me, Reiko, and my lovely co-host G.
So,
So, I guess just picking up from where we started last time, right?
yeah, I guess we were going to kind of talk about how Christianity has affected our civil rights movement.
So, what do you mean by that question? What does that really
I,
mean?
I think that we credit religion and we've had religious figures who have been kind of the leaders of like Black civil rights. Um, I don't know about in Africa, but particularly in like Black American culture. Um,
Malcolm X, Martin Luther King.
Yeah. And I think that what religion has done was limit the ask, like limit what we really ask for because we're trying to keep it contained within
Mhm.
an
Mhm.
ideology.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I feel that especially when it comes to attitudes towards gayness, it's the same kind of thing. It's like you're embarrassing us in front of the white people. Like we're trying to fit in here, and you're like super queer. Like it's kind of get back in the closet kind of thing. That's the
But
vibe
at
I
the
get.
same, but at the same time, religious people will say that queerness is okay for white folks, but not for Black folks. You know what I mean? Like they'll be more like that's some white people thing to do, but within the Black community, it's more looked down upon.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think that in the overall sense, it's just been a limiting factor in respect to like how the Bible and how like religion is taught, where you're supposed to be meek, you're supposed to be, wanting, you're supposed to be, like, oh, the meek will inherit this, that, and the other, which isn't true, right? Like, it's just like the way they tell you to behave when you have less, you
It's the
know,
carrot.
for,
It's the
for
dangling
like
carrot.
an imaginary future.
Mm,
Um, when your soul is, when your body is gone and your soul ascends to whatever like ideologies. Um, but what I think is like I was talking to someone before and I was just like, there's a common thing where we say that they should be glad that we only want equality and not revenge, right? When we should totally
yeah.
want revenge.
Mm,
You know what I mean? Like we should totally actually be in our villain era. Like, but I think in an effort to constantly be to fit into like the limiting beliefs of like
Wait, stop, stop,
religion.
stop. Stop, stop.
Go ahead.
No, okay. Just thought I'd try one more time. Yeah, go on.
No, because you're doing this.
I'm getting back to completely unnecessary interruption. That's my
That's your ADHD kicking in. Like, oh, let me just try over
yeah.
time. It didn't work before time, but
It's
now
because
maybe that we're in the
I had
middle
to
of something. Um,
understanding. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I just think it creates limiting beliefs, like across the board. Like we don't ask for as much as we are owed. We
Mm,
don't give credit to our anger. You know what I mean? We don't give that validation to like anything because we're still trying to fit within the religious constraints that we have been given.
definitely, definitely. I mean, have you tried to bring this up
To who?
with a believer, like putting this out? Because how do you think that would go?
Oh my God. It like honestly talking to a believer is the most frustrating thing in the world because I was actually recently talking to someone about the like just the Bible and I was like, man wrote the Bible. They're like, but they wrote God's words. And I'm like, how do you know that?
Mm.
Because don't you hear voices in your head? You know what I mean? Like most of us have an internal dialogue, right? So if you think about like how the stories of the Bible started to be written, like it's particularly, when they started this monotheist kind of ideology. It was just like rain, like he rained fire and light and da 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 down upon, it's a volcano, right? They heard voices in their head from a volcano. Like that's the only thing that makes logical sense, like his fires flow, like all of these things that just describe lava. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? And especially when one thing I wanted to say, because I think in our last thing, you're like, white people are in the Bible. And white people are not explicitly in the Bible, but white ideology is, particularly around what's good and evil. Light
Yeah,
and
yeah,
white is
yeah,
like already is been
yeah,
seen
yeah, yeah,
good
yeah,
versus
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
darkness,
This
blah blah.
is what
Like,
this is what I meant last time when I said that I feel like even though they're not in the Bible, they feel comfortable enough to assert themselves in it because of things like this, because it
mhm.
makes things like this easy for them to kind of transfer their ideologies into it. The white and black thing is a classic example.
Yeah. And I mean when you dig deeper into like the early before the Bible, right? Like biblical times, when you dig deeper into like who these people were that were coming, bringing this like monotheistic ideologies of Yahweh, right, to other cultures and other places, these were people that came from snowy places, right? Where it was like Russia and
Yeah,
Denmark. And so these were the Indo-Europeans. And we don't know what they look like, but we know that they were likely pale, right? Paler than the people then that they encountered. And this is also what they ended up creating caste systems in India. And, now people are like, oh, they credit Indians with this idea, but that was not their idea. It was these pre-Christians, basically, or pre-Judaism people who came in and created like this hierarchy based on skin complexion. And that carried over, obviously, for millennia in certain places. And so when we start talking about like, pure as the driven snow ideologies and all of these things, like where in the Middle East did they have snow?
exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, where did the concept of like light and white being like a guiding center for someone? It never would have been.
Yeah,
It's just like these people who were scared of thunder, lightning, and volcanoes and didn't understand what that was. And then just took it because that's a destructive force, took that kind of destructive ideology to justify their killing. So, anyway, I'm talking to this Christian person, right? And I'm saying they're like, oh, well, that's God's word. And I'm like, how do you know? Like, how do you know? Because someone wrote it down thousands of years ago, you don't think people were liars back then? You don't think that they were just cultists in,
mhm,
in some sort of way? And they were able to be very, very successful at it, because they were destructive. And then they just killed anybody who didn't believe like them. And it's just it's one of the things that's really interesting about current times, like living in Europe. And I'm sure you see this, like when you start understanding like the histories of before crusades, before all of these like kind of ideas, when you start understanding and seeing how families, like particularly like in Italy, like there were rich families who basically commissioned like Michelangelo and all of these people to create this art. It was propaganda, right?
mhm.
Like this is early propaganda, like all of the art that we are in awe of and these sort of things, just early propaganda. And it started the baseline, that's built up into now because they were thinking like we're going to own the world for forever. Excuse me. So like when these things like now when we see Trump trying to do what he's doing, it's the same model. It's just like the people are different, but it's the same model and
Mm.
it shows how unevolved we really are.
I'm
You,
glad you brought that up because, like, we think about print, or okay, maybe not print, but however they did it back then. Well, it was print because they printed on papyrus and that, but they could like mass print, right? So we think of print as starting from like the Industrial Revolution, but actually it started back then. So that means they've had all that time. They figured out then how to spread propaganda and how to maybe, if you think about like the gold rush, of the 1920s, like how
Mhm.
everyone went, or like the .com bubble, the .com thing, and everyone rushed to get a website. And I feel like this, like religion, this was that kind of thing back then. So this could have been like the Bible could have been written by someone who just wanted to, who was very good at storytelling and wanted a book of theirs to be in the Bible that maybe was not true. There's no way to verify it. There's no way to
No,
verify.
there's no way to verify it. It's just become such a integral part of like our social upbringing and ideas. And even if you're not religious, even if you grow up in a place in a family that's not religious, your life is still affected by other people's religious ideologies and the overall social structure of religious ideologies, you know? So you can't escape it. You know, like you say words like, oh my God, because it's something that we all realize whether you believe in God or not, it's something you say. And it's just like every aspect of our society has been affected by this for like so long that we don't even know how to separate ourselves from it. And I think it's just stopped our human our human evolution, especially like spiritually and like emotionally connecting. It seems as though before like monotheism and the patriarchy, hold on, there's this ambulance. Can you hear it? You don't hear the ambulance?
I think I heard like Nina.
Hold on, because it's passing right by my house.
Yeah, maybe I can hear it a little bit.
Yeah, the Zoom hears it because it was like, are you playing music? Okay.
I guess Italian ambulances sound melodic.
They do not. It's probably just confused by why are you making that noise? Okay. Um, what was I saying? So what's interesting is like trying to separate ourselves from religion is almost impossible because even back then, like our politics were shaped by religious ideology. And the propaganda you were talking about printing and all of these things like when when they destroyed so much information, they destroyed so much history, and they've rewritten even the Bible over and over again to try and get it so that it works, right? So that it works for what their purposes are.
And we saw that last time when you looked up that Bible verse and it's changed already.
Hmm.
They keep trying to cast that net to capture every possible. Yeah.
And that, you know what, and that we were talking about the Bible and homosexuality, but what's interesting is the same verses that they use to be anti that they say are anti-gay or makes gay relationships ungodly or whatever are the same verses that they use to say interracial relationships are a sin, you know? So
Who says
they,
who
mhm,
says that? Who's saying that?
they were just as illegal as listen. They wrap all this shit like, we see this happening right now in the United States. They are wrapping up like, certain states have made, it legal where people can
Oh yeah, yeah.
discriminate against, like, gay marriage, and that is a part and interracial relationships are a part of that. So they've connected those things for a really long time, and so it's just how they decide to use it, and even, you know, when people are in interracial relationships and anti-gay or whatever, they have the same they don't even realize like the same verses they use against those people they'll use against you.
I don't
So
think it's the same exactly. It can't be
it
because
is
how
it's the
is
same
how
verses.
is you should not lay with a man got anything to do with race, for example?
They don't say you should not lay with a woman. You know what I mean? So it's
I know something. Paul said something. Look, let me find it.
hold on. They
I
use
don't care. Okay,
go
but I
ahead.
just want
They
to. I just
use
want.
the
I
same.
just
I'm gonna hold on. I'm gonna look too.
Bible verse lesbian. Okay, Leviticus 18:22. Yeah.
Yep, I got that one.
Okay. How do you feel about that? It says, "You shall not lie with a male as with a woman. It is an abomination." Talk to me.
Well, they allow you to rape. That's not an abomination. And I actually don't know like what that means because you can't maybe rape a man like you could a woman. Maybe that's what it means. Maybe you need to ask permission. Maybe you need to have consent because most of the Bible is most of the Bible is men forcing the women into like
Situation.
subjugation.
Yeah, yeah.
And so in my interpretation, it's just like you can't subjugate a man more than like
Wow.
you could a woman, but you
This
need
is so
to have
interesting. This is so interesting. That's such an interesting take. Like I've never. It's just like rattled my brain because yeah, this just shows you how how propaganda works.
hmm
Don't even consider any other like you just accept what is it's that it's to do with that and that's it.
Exactly, because when you lay
Yeah.
with a woman in the Bible, most
Mm.
of it's unwanted.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like most of like the
So
the
true. So
the
true.
sex
Yeah.
with women is only for making babies, right?
Hmm.
So if we talk about how the Bible associates sexuality with women, it is not pleasure.
It's true.
It's not for the woman. It is for the man to dominate her. It is
Absolutely.
not anything consensual like it's not like the sex we want to have. It's not most sex that women want to have. So to me when I read something like that, it's about consent. You cannot rape a man. You have to have his consent.
Although in the Bible, Lot's daughter raped him, and yeah, God watched that happen.
He
Um,
watches all kinds of dirty shit happen.
all right, what about Romans 1:26-27 that says, and this is interesting, right? Because I was about to read it, and then as I was reading it, something clicked in my head that said, wait a minute, this is open to interpretation. So it says, for their women exchanged natural relations for those that are contrary to nature. So first of all, that doesn't say anything. That could mean like that could be referring to like paganism or something. It could be referring
It's
to
more likely referring to the pagan
yeah,
religions
yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
they were destroying.
They
And
make it, but the church, yeah, the church has made that verse a staple in the anti-lesbian rhetoric. So I just want you to know that.
well, they've made women prostitutes and whores that weren't prostitutes and whores in the Bible.
Yeah.
When I used to go to church, I used to wonder why there were so many prostitutes if all the men were so great. You know what I mean? Like, who's buying? There has to be a consumer base.
Yeah,
You know,
true.
like so it doesn't it's
How old were you when you thought that?
I don't know, probably when I found those I was probably like 12 or 11.
Oh,
Yeah, I was probably
that's
12 or 11. But I told you I was reading Flowers in the Attic back then. And
oh, yeah, you were
I was
very
reading
precocious.
reading books that I probably should not have. I was reading Stephen King, Flowers in the Attic kind of books. So um it was not like I don't know, my thought process was probably beyond what certain people's
Beyond
own.
your years, definitely beyond your
Yeah.
years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But the interracial, hold on, because I found the ones that for interracial. This is Deuteronomy. Speaking of the Israelites' relationship with the inhabitants of the promised land, God commands, you shall not intermarry with them, giving your daughters to their sons or taking their daughters for your sons. For there are many other Old Testament scriptures. Hold on.
So,
So,
so yeah, in the Bible, God did often say, "Do not intermarry with this tribe,
mm,
invade this land, but don't intermarry with this tribe." That does say that. That's true. That's a very recurrent theme.
yeah.
Very recurrent. That's not the only example. And yeah, I mean, I never saw it as an interracial thing, but I can see how a white supremacist would take that and make it that very
Mhm.
easily, And funnily enough, I never saw anything wrong with that. Like, it was just that blind acceptance that comes with, oh, God told them to move in here and like kill everyone and not to intermarry with them. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's just God being God. Yeah.
But it's so funny because when we talk about, people are always like anything negative or people see as bad, it's like, oh, the devil did it.
Hmm.
The devil doesn't kill anybody in the Bible.
Yeah.
He doesn't like tell you the most like idea that like every time the supposed manifestation of evil shows up, he's searching for truth.
Yeah.
He's like guiding towards like, you want to think about that? Do you think
Hmm.
about that?
He's a
And then
philosopher. Yeah.
And then it's also like interesting because we only talk about the fact that the devil fell from like God threw the devil out. But like a third of the angels followed him down. They're like, okay, we're out too. So what was going on in heaven? Do you know what I mean?
Did they
Because
leave
it was
or were
one,
they kicked out? Were they cast out as well? They were cast out as well.
no, they followed him.
Who says it? Should we find the verse?
Hold on. Revelations 12. Hold on.
When you think about Satan and Job, right, in the book of Job, do you know the story?
No, tell me. Okay,
God
go.
made a bet, a deal with the devil,
A
right?
deal with the devil. Okay.
To say that you could do whatever you want to Job. He's one of my favorites, and he would still choose me. That's
Mm.
how sure I am that he's devoted to me completely. You could throw anything at him, and he'll still choose me. And the devil said, "Bet," right? So God threw him into the desert, and Job was there for a number of years, and the devil just came with like he killed all Job's children and his wife. Then he inflicted him with boils, painful sores, uh, all these sicknesses. Might even been leprosy in there. I don't know, but I don't know. Maybe I just threw it in there. But a lot of things, right? Absolutely everything, every tragedy you can think of, he threw at this guy. It's like a parent, yeah, saying to a violent person with a gun that, you know, you could shoot all you want at my kid. She's still gonna know who I am. She's still gonna want me.
Yeah.
It's just like absurd. It's absurd to think that the God that you're supposed to trust and who says he's got you and who says you can rely on him, right? And who says he will never let anything bad happen to you, would do this to Job.
Purposefully.
Unthinkable. And make a whole
Purposefully.
book about it. Make a whole book about it
Yeah.
to show everyone, right? That's something Trump would do, I feel like.
It's something Trump is actually doing. And you see, but you know what? This is why the Bible is one of the most like mentally it requires like a certain level of mental deficiency almost because how how can you talk about self-love,
Mm-hmm.
right? And know that someone you worship and give your all to, pray to, put all this faith in will do just anything, just to test you, just to
Yeah.
be like, and just so you can be like, that was the devil, not my God. You know what I mean? Like how
And then you ask yourself, and then that leads to the question, does God have a sixth sense of humor? Because you can imagine that if God is willing to make a deal with a demon like the devil, the head, the guy who did
he
something really
created
bad.
that demon though, you
I
know?
know, but someone so evil, right, that he would go behind his chosen's back, who his chosen has devoted his whole life to him, and make a deal. It's almost like God is mocking you. It's almost like
Yes, because
how do you
why
know
does
that
the devil still exist?
how do you know that God and the devil weren't like laughing at you while this was happening? Like,
But
do you know
he
what I
is.
mean? It's like, how do you know that they're not making that seeing how dumb you are? Look at how dumb Job is. Like, you don't know that it wasn't like that because you know, yeah, if God
So
is
why are you like we can't make deals with the devil, right? Like if
exactly,
we make deals with the devil, our soul is like in turn to damnation, right? But he can, right?
yeah,
He can. Not only does he, but why didn't he destroy him as opposed to sending sin and hellfire to earth? Why if you
because it was Eve's fault because they blamed that on Eve. Remember, she was a woman. She brought sin into the world, not God. Remember that.
yeah, because the Eve myth, the creation myth is
Tell us
Bible
about Lilith.
is like the initial propaganda against women.
Tell us about
So
Lilith.
so Lilith, okay, yeah. So the creation story, they completely erased Lilith in the King James whatever Christian Bible. Most people don't know anything about Lilith being Adam's first wife. And she's in the Hebrew text. And so Lilith was created, or Lilith was there, right? And actually Lilith is present. Actually, it's funny. I wrote the sigil of Lilith on my hand today. So Lilith, she was actually a part of the goddess era. She was a priestess in the goddess era. Okay. And she gets lost really even in the Hebrew text, but she was Adam's first wife. And because she wanted equality, because she thought she was equal to Adam, she left him and then they made her a demon. So any other time like you hear anything that's associated with Lilith is as a demon that she goes around apparently like collecting sperm and making demon babies, right? Like that's how they turn most women into like terrible human beings or terrible things in the Bible. And so if you're not a prostitute, you're a demon, you know? So like you're a whore, prostitute, or demon. Like those are the three things. But what it really speaks to is that the goddess period where these women had religious power, where they actually spoke to their internalized intuition mattered, right? So the creation story and the snake is significant because during the goddess era, snakes are seen as a connection to spirit, right? To goddess spirit. So there are you would see like old images of the goddess with like snakes draped around her. And even in like Egyptian like times they have the the crowns they had a snake at the center over your third eye. And so the snake was seen as a way to reach spiritual enlightenment,
Mm.
likely because they were taking bits of venom and getting high and using it kind of like mushrooms or something like that. And like, so women were seen as the messengers with the snakes. So basically, the snake represents the old goddess period and that intuition and knowledge of everything that the goddesses had. And so, knowing something from that period of time made you problematic. And that's why Eve talking to the snake in the garden was like the first sin because she's actually listening to the old ways of the goddess and the snake is a messenger. And so, the other thing that we always see is like the snake is or the tree of knowledge is an apple tree. In goddess mythology, the tree was a fig tree. Apple trees were not in the Middle East. Again, it was a fig tree. Why they were ended up wearing fig leaves, after they became knowledgeable that they were naked or whatever, you see them with the fig leaves. The tree of life was the fig tree, right? Not the tree of knowledge. And so they kind of like take those stories and intermingle them, and so now we have like the apple and instead of the fig and blah blah blah. So that is like the first propaganda to start saying women aren't able to listen to themselves. They will lead men down the wrong path if they listen to the woman, and she needs to be ruled by him because she makes poor decisions. So that's like the setting for how they're going to and the reasons why they get to do all of the evil things that they do to women throughout the Bible. I mean, Mary Magdala, and I'm doing a little series on my TikTok, excuse me, about the 304s of the Bible, the whores of the Bible. And Mary Magdala was not a prostitute,
Magdalene. Magdalene.
Magdalene,
Yeah.
thank you. Mary Magdalene was not a prostitute. And a pope or something created this myth about her, but there's nowhere in the Bible that she's a prostitute.
Mm.
And there are other texts that have like the book of Mary. So there is a whole story that has been created because men don't want women to have like spiritual knowledge. And
Just off
they
the back of that, just off the back of that, before you go on, right? I
mm,
heard this fascinating interpretation of that story, right? The Garden of Eden story. Is that
mhm,
so basically in the story, God said, let us go down to the garden and see what's up, right?
mhm,
Apparently that is like your consciousness wanting to, it was meant to be your consciousness or the story of consciousness wanting to experience itself in the third dimension as flesh, right? So it comes down, well, the serpent is your DNA activation, right? And it's interesting that you said about the shape of the snake because it's on those medical symbols as well, and it's to do with
mhm.
healing, and it's also to do with spiritual connectivity, like you said. So that, and because when you think about the DNA ladder, right, it's like a download of DNA activation. So having that fruit is the process of that, right? It's the alchemical process of that, I guess. And yeah, that's all I wanted to say. I just thought it was really interesting, really
No,
interesting.
I think
There's a
that
lot I'm missing out, but
No,
I'll,
I think I think that one of the things we missed out, and it's funny, I was trying to explain this to my 7-year-old today. One of the things that we have lost, I guess, in religion in general is our connectivity to ourself and our inner voice, right? And so we have forgotten what's in our DNA.
Mhm.
And when we talk about this spiritually, we have forgotten as Black, as African, as Indigenous people, our spiritual DNA. You know, it's not this. And I think that is why we're so disconnected and lost in this realm, because again, we're giving our energy to a entity and an idea that isn't in our DNA,
Mhm.
you know, but we're trying to force it there. We're trying to like make it so. And I think that has been why we aren't successful in our freedom fight, you know what I mean? And we want to identify with like these various groups in the Bible and like as though those are our stories when they're not. And I think that has been, you know, universally the global majority's problem. You know what I mean? Like, because again, we are let 7% of the world terrorize the rest of us. Like,
Yeah.
there's something wrong with us.
Yeah.
Like, there's something wrong with the rest of us to when you really think about because why and how? Like, why and how? When we're more of us, but we are always trying to like create ourselves in an image that is not our own. So
Okay. Why do you think Black people still believe in God being real when they see racism and experience it in their lives every day or damn near every day, and they don't see that changing? What would make them keep going back to believe that and defend that? Do you know what I mean? Because if it was a man, if they were in a relationship with a person who was doing that and continually not saying anything every time they got racially abused, or like allowing things to happen to their people, looking the other way, whatever it is, going out and cheating consistently, whatever this metaphor is, if it was a person doing that, we would tell them to leave that person, or they would know that you shouldn't be with someone like that, right? Who's not caring about you or your well-being, who's not caring about your place in the world.
because their God is an evil God. I mean, all he does is create suffering. You know what I mean? So, and enduring that suffering is part of how you get to whatever your idea of heaven is supposed to be. And you know, heaven is a mess anyway, like when you start thinking about that. But I mean, like heaven is basically slavery.
Yeah,
And so it's just like
talked about that.
everything that they have brainwashed us to believe is that our suffering is what's going to make us um good, I guess, make heaven available to us in some way.
Okay, but you know that question, if you're praying to God and your oppressor is praying to God, which prayers are being answered? What do you think a Christian would say to that?
They would be like, "That's not my God." Or they'll be like, "My God sees my prayers and knows like my heart." Like whatever it is to because that's the whole that's my whole thing. It's just like if their God is winning, right? Their God is winning. I don't care what you say because when we look at how the world is
Mhm.
and we look at the history of things, their God is winning. And you praying to the God that they gave you is only energizing that energy towards them. So if you believe in that, that's the God they gave you. So of course, praying to their God helps their plight. Because why else wouldn't it? Why else wouldn't it? Because everything in the Bible, you know, if we looked at white people as the Levites, where in the Levites in the Old Testament, like they had to give everything over to the Levites. So when the Levites showed up, everybody had to like give them their shit, right? Like and that was supposed to be godly, right? They were supposed to subjugate themselves to this group of people. And that is what has been happening, you know, and it's more likely that a black person would find wrath at in me than they would white people. I think a great example is how there's always these feuds between like South Africans and Black Americans, right? Especially like social media. And I think like Black Americans were having issue with like South Africans using the word colored, right? And then South Africans were having an issue with what happened in Louisiana during like their parade, and they were like Zulu, whatever, and they're like, that's our shit, like you're using it wrong, and we don't like that. And so like they have this, and then they were saying, we're gonna put a curse on you, and we're gonna do this. Meanwhile, apartheid, why weren't you cursing the white people? Why weren't you like trying to free yourself from that shit spiritually, you know? And same thing with black people when they were talking about like these curses and this voodoo and hoodoo going back and forth across a fucking oceans, you know what I mean? And I'm like, y'all got lots of vitriol for each other. You look almost the fucking same. You know, you've had the same, like South Africa and black Americans have had like very similar histories and struggles, and their oppressor is the same looking type of person. So but they don't see, like that sort of thing is crazy to me. And again, it limits our imagination and it limits our ask, and it has made all of us look at each other in ways that you are more likely to be an enemy to me than my enemy, which is really insane. You know, it's really insane. And it's not saying that all white people are your enemy, but at the
Well,
same time, as a group, you know what I mean? Like as a group, yes. And we know throughout history how that has like played out for us, but we don't change it. It's just brainwashing. It's like it's been so severe and so internalized and generational and beat into us, not only by our oppressors, but then by our parents and then by, you know what I mean? So,
that's the thing. And a lot of Africans are very tribal, especially South Africans. They are deeply like problematic like that because they had beef with Nigeria, and there was a point when they were killing and eating Ghanaians in South Africa. There was this cannibal thing going on because someone said something, and like it's just so crazy and silly, and like Black South Africans, you can do better than that, you know? Like you can do better. I feel like it's misguided anger. A lot of it is because the white system in place there is so oppressive, right? And they're still trying to overturn that. And there's a lot of tension in South Africa. There's so
oh
much.
yeah. No,
Yeah.
and it's so funny because I mean, even with the political shit that's going right now, where like Trump is like inviting Afrikaners to go to the United States.
Don't even.
I was just like, why doesn't South Africa be like, okay, you know what? Never mind. We'll send them all to you. Give us the black Americans and we'll send all of the white people to you. Because it would almost balance out in population. So I'm just like, what? Like, but I don't, it's just crazy. Because I'd be like, I'll send you all of them. Yep, we'll get our land back. We
I
won't have
see. I support Black South Africans because what they're doing right now in the government is that they're taking land back from white owners,
to.
and that's
Mhm.
part of what Trump was crying about in the White House that in that appointment, right?
But even in that, you know, he was saying there was a genocide, right?
Oh
It
yeah,
was that was his point. Not even just that, it was a genocide. And even in the point of like South Africans taking land back, I don't think they've actually taken occupied land. You know what I mean? So
some of
it's
them
been,
have. Some of them have.
oh, some of them have. Okay, because
And I say good. I say good. That's how it should be. Like this should
no,
have happened
I
a long
agree.
time
I
ago.
know that was happening in Namibia,
Mm.
but in South Africa, what I read was that they had not taken occupied land. They had just been taking land
That's
that
what they
was owned,
say.
but
That's what they say. That's what they say.
okay.
But a lot of it there has been some force, and there has been some people taken forced, like some renegades have like branched off of this and like taken. But I support the renegades as well. I support the renegades as well because imagine being forced to live in shanty towns your whole life. You know,
Because that's what
people.
happened to them. I mean, like, that's again, I think that's one of the things where when we start talking about we are angry enough to take revenge.
Yeah, and they are doing that in
Yeah,
South
we
Africa.
should be.
This is part of why Trump's running scared and why Musk is running scared, and all those white Afrikaners came running to crying to Trump, Daddy Trump, to fix it. Right? It's because the new wave of like the new South Africans, they are angry, and that you saw the video with the rally they had, like,
Mhm.
and I can't remember the guy's name, the leader. But there's a lot of people who support him. Even Trump knows that. He even said that in the meeting that that's not a small crowd. That's a big stadium full of people.
Yeah,
It was.
bigger. It's more bigger than his crowd. So,
Yeah.
you know.
And they are ready. And white South Africans know their time is up. They know their time is up, and they've been knowing it for a minute. And that's what this is all about. And so I say, you know, and as you know, Africa has the largest population of young people on earth. So the young ones are no fools. The young ones are ready to take back what's theirs.
I
And that is happening. It's
Yeah, no, I think that's important. And I think a unified like continent there will make a huge difference. And that's part of the reason why Europe and the West is going to be on the decline in the next few years. And they are fighting so hard, like to enslave everyone again. You know what I mean? Because that's what it really comes down to is power. And without people, they're not having children. Everyone's aging out here in, especially like in Italy and like lots of in United States. Like that is why they're trying to get more white people there is because they want more white population because now that more brown people are taking over, like you just physically the
Mhm.
this power is shifting. And I think, like me, if all of the brown and black people left Europe and left America and went, I don't know, South America and to like Central America, back to Africa, like wherever, you know what I mean, that there are brown people, what would they do? If they could leave us alone, but they wouldn't, right? They would be murdering each other, first, and then they'll realize, oh wait, we still need to try and murder them and enslave them again. But if we had more of a united front, you know what I mean, across like the global majority, then that power shift would happen more quickly. But I think they already see how it's going to change just from population control because if you don't have people, you don't have power. So that's what it really comes down to.
But is that really true? Because, like you said, 7% of the world controls 92%. So clearly, they show that.
You still have people though. You have people to control. So like right now, if white people got to 2 to 3%, they wouldn't have the same idea of power. You know what I mean? Right now, everything is so Eurocentric across the world that that's their power. They have people in us. If they don't have us, right? And we start deconstructing this Eurocentric ideologies that we have all been embedded in for so long. They don't have us anymore. Right now, their power is in the idea that there's so much more of them. Like they think they're 90% of the fucking world. And most black people would think that too because we see them everywhere. It could be the same. I go to whenever I go to a like a casting for like modeling or whatever, it's like 70 girls in there. All of them look the same. Absolutely all of them look the same. But they only want one black person. If they have like a black person, they're like, we got a black person. But they'll have a campaign full of the same fucking copy and paste white girl over and over again. And it gives the idea that there's much more of them. If they don't have that idea, if more of us are taking charge and we're putting more of our people in front and center, and they start to see that balance shift,
Mhm.
for it's mental. You know what I mean? So it's mental. So they need those powers in place, and it's not just the political structures, it's the advertising, it's the books, it's all of those things. And when that shift starts to, if that shift happens because they don't have those people in power anymore, then the whole ideology starts to fall away.
Well, we need to hurry up and procreate a bit more then. I don't know what's taking so long.
It's not even procreation. It's actually because we're already the majority. You know what I mean? Like we can you can never like get rid of black folks. You know what I mean? Like from procreation. You can never get rid of black and brown people. So it's just like we don't even have to procreate anymore. We just have to wake up. We have to come out of the spell that we're under. And I think that if more of us came out from under that spell, we'll realize that the asks that we have been asking have not been enough.
Mhm. Why do you think there's this timidness around taking what we deserve? Is it still feeling that?
We don't have the political connections and powers, you know? And that's why I would think that, in our I don't know if you sent me this video, where it was like an African guy talking to a Black American, and he was like, he was worse off. The Black American was worse off because like the African guy could go back home,
Yeah.
right? And like leave the white people. And I was like, it's sad that he doesn't realize he has the same oppressor over there because the Congo and all of those people who are enslaved, all of the political problems that have happened, it's the same oppressor. You know what I mean? Africa is poor because the West needs it to be poor. And so all of the resources that they have been stealing, all from people to minerals in the ground to like whatever it is, using children, um, and all of those things, the same oppressor is doing that to you. You know what I mean?
He made all good points though. Did you not agree with the other points?
What were those other points?
I can't remember, but he was just pointing out things about the Black American mentality.
But his mentality isn't that far different because he thinks he's different. And it really came down to
Two
the,
sides of the same coin.
yes, it's two sides of the same coin because it really just comes down to what you think you have versus what you actually have. You know, Black Americans think they have had the progress, and in some ways we have. We've had progress since like we were enslaved. We have, you know, more freedoms than we've had like ever. But where is Africa's progress in respect to you own like most of the world's minerals and riches and still mostly enslaved across the continent?
It sounds like
So
you're having a dig. It feels
I'm
like
not having a dig. I'm just saying it's the same thing.
yeah, but that's not the point. That wasn't the point of that video.
I felt like it was the point that the African guy didn't see himself as
No,
oppressed.
no, no.
But
He didn't. He wasn't thinking he was better. It was just.
hold on, I'm about to find this video
It
because
was a philosophical, reflective conversation. That's what
mm,
it was.
I'm gonna find it
I
just
think.
so I can. Here it is.
Oh God.
I'm African American. He is straight African. How do you see African Americans?
I see y'all as slaves
And what makes us slaves?
because you built a nation that controls you.
How does it control us? We got NBA,
That's the
NFL. We
point.
running it.
They use you as dancers and entertainers.
But they paying us 100 million plus.
Yeah, but then they own the money.
So,
Paying you.
so the Africans, how y'all see African Americans?
Huh?
How do Africans see African Americans?
We see y'all honestly as, if you want the truth, we see y'all as our heroes that have given up on themselves.
But I know a lot of Americans that see y'all, they be like African booty scratchers.
It's the persona that the white man has printed on you to dismiss your brother. Because you got to divide me to conquer me with you.
But you divided us and said we are slaves.
Yeah.
But they got y'all too, ain't it?
No, they don't.
You would be like, I'm your brother, I'm lost though.
Because I could say tomorrow, if I'm done with this shit, I could go home. You can't go home. You stay here.
He says we see you guys as heroes that have given up on yourselves, which I'm just like, I feel like that's just across the Black diaspora. You know what I mean? Because I think a lot of Black Americans look at Africa and see them as the place to go, as the leaders, and eh, you know what I mean? Again, still intertwines with like European forces, and most of the time selling out their own people for it. So he was just like, well, what about African Americans that see you guys, the Africans, as just like booty scratchers? And he's like, well, that's the impression that white people have given you of us. And I'm like, well, that's the same impression you have from, you know what I mean, from the perspective of Black Americans. Like, I
No,
I think so because most Africans do not interact with Black Americans. I mean, living here in Europe, the only most of the Black people I interact with are African, and they do they act like brown people, not Black people a lot of times in respect to
they don't speak for all Black people in the diaspora. I know that stuck up group that you're talking about, but we don't
no,
talk.
not just I mean in general. I mean like in general. Like I have before like, you know, I even met people here, you know what I mean? Um I would like, you know, anyway, there's not a connectivity based on blackness. That's what I will say. So he's literally said, he was like, they're dividing us. even like Black Americans and Africans, because you see me as a slave. And he says, that means they got you too, as an African. He was like, nah, they don't have me. They just got you. So like, that's what I'm saying. Like, most Africans that I have met are far more white centered than Black Americans are, in respect to like placating to whiteness over Black people. You know what I mean? In general. And that's a generalization. Not everybody, obviously, but that's a generalization. And I would say, like, I met women here before I actually met a few, like, like, made, connections with people. And I swear, I would like say hello, and they would look me up and down like I stole their place in the visa line. You know what I mean? Like, like no friendliness, no like, not even just like, I don't even know what to say. Not even just like, okay, a misguided friendliness. I've had African women, I was like wrapped my hair. I think I told you the story. And like I had my head wrapped with a scarf. And this woman came and she asked me where I was from. And I was like, I'm American. And then she was like, well, that head wrap is from my culture. And I was like, okay. I don't know why you tell it. Okay. Like, and then you go give like a white girl box braids. You know what I mean? So it's just like,
Do you
it's,
know why that is though?
mm,
Because African women are some of the coldest women on this earth. Like, if they turn on the haughty eyes, oh my god, they can shut you out. Even in Africa, like customer service is terrible. This is because they're so stuck up and they're so like cold and rude. Unless you're a white person, and sometimes even then, they carry it over to white people as well, increasingly so. But if you are a Black person in Africa, yeah, that is a thing. That is a thing. And I think the reason is because obviously the colonized mind, but in them coming over to the West, there's this like pressure on them, probably like financial, social, socioeconomic, to fit in and survive and make it in the West. So they feel like they still have this 1950s idea of like copying what the Commonwealth does, and trying
that's
to
what
be.
I'm saying. Like, they still we don't see our connection in any sort of powerful way. So we can't look at each other and say we can connect and we can grow power together. We never will. And
Don't say never. Don't say never.
we won't. If we cannot connect, we will not.
Don't be so pessimistic. There's still time. There's still time.
Before they drop the bombs on all of us, maybe.
Oh my God. Cynical Susie over here. Bloody hell.
I'm just saying, there is time. There is time for everything. But what I'm saying is that we don't have,
We have
I mean, I feel like I need to get out of the West. That's my next goal. But if we don't find a way to build community amongst ourselves, then it's going to continue to be problematic for us. And if we don't learn how we have been systematically, as a society, not just Black people, all of us, like, so as a society, we've been brainwashed to behave in certain ways. Like, we think we're free, but we're not. And I think that like listening to that, and you can play it, like you can probably edit and put the video in, but I think that it's going to be difficult if we cannot find a way to get over certain things. And we've talked about this in our other video. And I mean, I've gotten different comments about it, but for me, it just like reiterates how many people don't understand what power is and how power plays out and how our world has been built on a certain power structure and how they're trying to maintain that right now. They see the weaknesses and crumbling, and we're not even like being smart enough to like try and start taking advantage of that. So
I mean, there's protests going on, but what do they do? Ultimately, I feel like there needs to be a different type of action.
no, there needs to be much different types of actions. Like, I feel like we need to look at how we need to get around paying taxes. We need to look at how we can acquire the things that these people, and I was talking to someone else. I'm like, if you started your own church, it doesn't have to be Christian church, to get and start businesses through that church. Now you're not paying taxes, right? Like, that's what a lot of these people do. Like, they they create ways to make businesses to get rich, and don't lie, I guess, to the people that are involved, but you can lie to the government because they lie to us, right? Like, so I feel like when you start finding these ways to manipulate the system and
Absolutely.
actually start building wealth, because the only thing they think we know how to manipulate is the welfare system when they're the biggest ones on welfare. So it's just like, if we find ways to really manipulate the system, unite, build power, and understand what that power needs to lead to, have a long-term goal and plan, it'll start to make a difference for everyone. But I do think that Black Americans, because there are so few of us in the United States, if you're going to stay there, you need a broader connection. And that's one thing we never like talk that much about. When we talk about the West, right? That's America, that's, parts of Europe, that's they control most of the world. And that connectivity is really important to their power. So, which even here in Europe they don't recognize. Like, they'll be like, "Oh, we're watching America Fall." And I'm like, "Oh, you don't know. You don't know?" like like you don't know. "Oh, so sweetie, I'm so sorry." Like, they're going to drag you into that fucking abyss with them. So, it's interesting because they have like that attitude is one of like complete privilege and disconnecting reality, because like they've been taught like it's them and them and them, but our governments have not been working that way. Even as they are trying to spread this right wing stuff, they're not working with the governments that are already in power. They're trying to work with the people they want to be in power. And so if Black Americans like were able to start seeing that, connects, with Africa, connects with South Africa, your South America, like other cultures and countries where you could come together and actually get investments and make money and start actually making a difference, then that's how you're going to build power. Like, right now individually is not happening. Like, and I don't know how, like, obviously I'm not the person, but I don't know how they can start connecting across these ways, like, especially in our politics, but like, get more Black people in politics, start making those connections like in other places, building power, building momentum for something that can change the world and the outcome. But that's not what they're doing. It's always comes back to trying to prove to, you know, if it's MAGA or whoever, like, "Oh, we can fit in. We can make your parts work and our parts work," when it has never worked that way. So, I don't know.
Have you heard of, there's this global business network called BYP? Just Google them right now. I want to know, I
BYP.
want to know what vibe you get from that
What is it
organization.
called? BYP?
BYP.
V is in Victor.
E for black.
BYP.
Yeah.
Hold on. BYP.
Let me know if you think the vibe from that is like trying to fit in with Westernness, or if you think it's more like interconnectedness with it.
It's B is in black, Y is in yellow, P is in Paul.
Yes.
And what is it exactly?
BYP network.
Network.
Sorry, I'll get impatient very quickly. Because
Yeah,
if I
I
had to,
know, because we have to
always what?
um be patient with you, but you don't know your how to be patient with others.
That's not true. Well, it is true a little bit.
Okay, this is in the United Kingdom. It's taking a long time for their website to come up. BlackRock.
You can't avoid BlackRock. Come on.
I mean, that those first like employers that came up was BlackRock. I'm like, oh, that already tells you something right there. Why is like, oh, it's like a job. Is it a
Yeah,
jobs?
it's like a LinkedIn for black people.
Oh, okay, okay. I'm like, what is this? This is like job stuff. I mean, I think this is good. It doesn't look like it's connecting or trying to build Black businesses. It's trying to get Black people into like existing opportunities and big corporate positions.
So you feel like it's trying to assimilate.
I mean, it's trying to move it within the framework that's there. You know what I mean? Like
Do you think
that's
that's a good thing or neutral?
I mean, it's neutral because again, we have this framework and we're used to it. So of course, it's easiest to just try and find the Black people, the companies that are wanting to hire Black people versus finding our own things to compete and build again, like generational opportunities. So, like what we see right now with what Trump is doing in the United States to DEI and what he's trying to force to happen in Europe through his trade deals is to affect immigration and diversity within those countries as well. So, again, we don't have the power to say no. You know, I know plenty of people like who have been fired from their jobs because of like this whole DEI thing. And so
So you think things like this are helpful?
they're helpful to within the framework that we have.
Yeah.
And it's helpful to learn if we're going in with the idea, I'm going to learn this business so that I can take this information to grow something else from versus like I have a job. You know what I mean? And I think more of us are just like, I have a job versus how can this be a long-term ideology or this can be a long-term learning experience that I can use to build other networks and other frameworks from. So I think that's what we're missing, not just getting into like these corporate positions that have been not always open to us and trying to get into them. It's fine, it's within the framework, but we need to start building on that for other things.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that.
So I don't know. I got like 10 more minutes before I gotta go.
Yeah, I've got to go right now. So
Okay. So you want to wrap it up?
yeah, so good talk as always.
Yes, thank you. I mean,
Um,
I feel like we went on a
yeah, it was quite, yeah, but that's all right. I mean, that's driving to admire the view. It's not always a
yeah,
destination. But I feel like we did land in a good, perfectly like reasonable, logical ending
I think so. Yeah.
tied together. So um yeah, so I guess I'll see you next time.
Yeah, thanks. Like and subscribe, share the video, and make sure you subscribe to
Reiko, UK.
yes, and the G Life.
You look very glamorous today. Where are you going?
I look glamorous,
A little bit.
really.
Um,
Um,
makeup? No?
oh yeah, I put eyeliner on and lipstick for this.
You got your curls back a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. There, I twisted my hair like in big twists and then took them apart and like yeah, because this
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of the whatever this thing they put on my hair.
Keratin.
It smells funny when I wash it too.
Really?
Yeah,
Like what?
like heat.
Sounds intriguing. Maybe it's your menopause.
That my hair smells funny.
No, that it smells of heat.
No, this like when you blow dry your hair, what that
Oh,
smells like, that's what it smells like to me.
okay.
So, but I'm gonna get my hair braided or something by the end of this week for
Cool.
the summer for my trip away.
Probably look like 10 years younger.
Hmm?
You probably look 10 years younger.
Do you think I look younger when I have my hair braided?
I don't know. I was just trying to pay you a compliment.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm a bit like awkward with that. I tried, all right? You should have just taken it and kept it moving.
okay, yeah, thanks. I had a 20-year-old dude like stalk me yesterday, so
Oh, okay.
yeah, that was weird.
How did that end?
With me pushing him in this direction. 'Cause
Really?
I was getting on the train, I was going to my doctor's appointment, and this guy was I was going this way, this guy was going this way. And so as I'm going, he stops and he was like, "Wow, you're beautiful." And I was like, "Okay, thanks." And I kept going. But since he was going that way, I didn't think anything about it. And then all of a sudden I was waiting for the train. I was reading some messages on my phone and I look up and he was standing behind me. And I was like, "The fuck?" And so I was like, so he turned around and then he got on the train with me. He didn't talk to me on the train, but he sat like across from me. And so then I was like, is he following me? No, he can't be following me. And I was half paying attention to the stop, so because I was reading messages on my phone, and then I looked up and it was like, oh shit, my stop. And so I jumped out like right before the door was closing, and I was thinking he didn't jump out behind me, but he did. He did. And so when I was walking down the street, I was going up the stairs, I turned around and he was there and he was like, hey, yeah, hi. And I was like, you know, and so then he was like, what are you doing right now? And I was like, I have appointments. And he was just like, well, I was hoping to invite you for like a brioche. And I was just like, I'm married. And then he was just like, that doesn't bother me. And I was just like, okay. And I was like, I'm going that way and you need to go that way. And so I pushed and then I went that way. And that was like, yeah.
Anyway, I really have to go now.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.